Vice President J.D. Vance comes out swinging at the media.
You just asked me a question that presumed that the reason why this woman died is because she was engaged in legitimate protest. She tried to run somebody over with her car, and the guy defended himself when that happened. Next question.
In Minneapolis, day 2 of protests, people seen clashing with law enforcement. All this while the governor, Tim Walz, clashes with DH Secretary Kristi Noem.
This was an act of domestic terrorism, which is perpetuating.
No investigation into who she was or what she was about, and yet now you're saying
These policies and procedures that follow a use of force situation like this are continuing to be put in place. So this is standard operating procedure.
Very, very difficult for Minnesotans to think in any way this is going to be fair when Kristi Noem was judge, jury, and basically executioner yesterday.
In just a moment, Chairman Jim Jordan joins to discuss the unrest and the ongoing investigation into massive fraud in Minnesota, plus President Trump's plan for Venezuela's oil. Could gas prices go down? Secretary of Energy Chris Wright joins me. Also ahead, what is Trump's plan for Greenland? And what do our allies think? The Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, David Lammy, is here. But first, correspondent Joe Moeller is on the ground with Border Patrol in Minneapolis. Joe?
Yeah, we are now on this ride along with the Border Patrol agents during this massive immigration enforcement operation that's taking place here in been arrest with these Border Patrol agents. Federal ICE facility, where we've also seen protests throughout the day, and this morning especially. And now we're going to return to the facility. Maybe if we can come back out here live, I'll show you what we've been seeing throughout the day out the window. Maybe if we can turn down this window here. Oh, here we go. A little bit more on that window. Sorry, bear with us. We're in the car. This is what we've been experiencing this morning before we hopped in the car with Border Patrol, who we were with right now. This is the protest outside the ICE facility. You can see a lot of them giving the bird. Something we've demonstrated earlier. You can see that, people giving them the bird. They're yelling at the agents. And we've been with Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino today, and he's been out here assisting with these arrests as well. And this is, you see this crowd here. People even followed us here that we've stopped with. But I did talk to Bovino earlier about, what these agents go through when they do make these stops and they get out of the car. And they have to really keep their eyes open. This is what he had to say.
You don't know what you're getting into. This is a prime example when the individual was spraying the paint out of the fire extinguisher. You don't know what you're getting into. Especially here in Minneapolis and the blue states and sanctuary states, you don't know what you're getting into, and that's always a problem. You can see today there's a lot of individuals out that don't agree.
All right, now we're making our return to the ICE facility here south of Minneapolis, where these demonstrations have been taking place, and we are going to wrap up this ride along with Border Patrol, and we'll have much more on Newsmax throughout the day because it's been an interesting day. They've made several arrests, and this is something that they're continuing to do despite what unfolded yesterday. Many were wondering if this giant operation would continue, but they say it definitely will, and agents are back out on the street here in Minneapolis. I'll send it back to you.
Joe Moeller in Minneapolis. Thank you. Minnesota is also the epicenter of an investigation into billions of dollars in social services fraud. Here's what Vice President J.D. Vance said earlier today.
This is not movie villain fraud. This is the lowest IQ possible fraud. This is, we're going to take the absence of kids and set up a daycare center where there are no children, and we're going to call our early childhood education center the Quality Learning Center. By the way, if you can't spell learning, maybe you shouldn't be in early childhood education. But people got rich off of this. We know that there were schools who either had no enrollment or at least they overstated their enrollment. Tim Walz, either it was unbelievable incompetence or he was in on the fraud. That's one of the things we're going to get to the bottom of.
Yesterday, this fraud was the topic of a hearing on Capitol Hill. Ohio Republican and Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan, joins me. Good afternoon, sir. And I know that this investigation is just ongoing with your committee, but to take off from what Vice President Vance just said, is Governor Tim Walz incompetent, or did he participate in some
Well,
way, or what's the explanation? I mean, the buck stops there.
Yeah, I do think it's more than just overlooking the fraud. It seems to me that they were in some ways assisting, enabling, helping it along, because we know there was a meeting where the Attorney General met with people in another program, the Feeding Our Future program, which said they were feeding children, much like what the Vice President was talking about with the early childhood education centers that weren't really happening. They said they were feeding kids, but there were no meals. They really weren't, and with just basic fraud there as well. And it turns out the Attorney General met with the leaders of that organization. A couple of weeks later, he gets contributions to his campaign from those very people, and some of them are now in prison. They've been indicted, they've been convicted, and they're waiting sentence. So that's from that Feeding Our Future organization. So this thing was huge. And this is why it's great that the Justice Department is going to have someone focused exactly on this, because it was SBA, Department of Agriculture, Department of Education, it was HHS, it was Housing and Urban Development. Almost every agency that sends out American tax dollars was getting bilked, there was fraud going on. And now there are, of course, two other agencies involved, namely the FBI and the Justice Department, who were going after these folks who were, taking money from Americans, doing things that they shouldn't have been doing.
All right. Well, there are a couple of really obvious clues. When someone who's head of a nonprofit's driving a Porsche, that's certainly a tip-off, because nonprofits usually don't make that much money. But you just listed a bunch of federal agencies who've been giving money to Minnesota, and Minnesota apparently didn't monitor, but neither did these federal agencies. I mean, what are these federal agencies just writing checks left, right, and center and doing no check at all, and then do nothing? I mean, it's just it's astounding. Point. It's not just the state of Minnesota.
We may need the inspector generals in these various agencies to dig in and find some things there. Of course, that's what the Oversight Committee, Chairman Comer, committee I also get to participate in. That's what we're looking into, and we're slated to have Mr. Walz and the Attorney General from Minnesota be in front of the committee in 4 weeks. So we'll see. But the other thing they did, particularly with the program I referenced, this Feeding Our Future program, was designed to help kids get meals, which they weren't. It's the old template. They said that if you don't keep the money coming, because there was a point where Minnesota said, time out, something's not right here. And they stopped it for a while, but they restarted it, and they restarted it because the people who were running it said, if you don't do this, we're going to file a claim saying that you're discriminating against us for racial reasons. That they played the race card. And this is the template. I say this all the time. We see it from the left. The left will tell a lie. We're feeding kids when they're not. The big media will report that lie, and then when you tell the truth, they call you a racist. And that's exactly what played out in Minneapolis, what played out in Minnesota, and it looks like the people in power said, okay, we'll back off, go right ahead, and maybe even took campaign contributions because they restarted the funds for this program.
Well, since apparently it's so easy to steal from the federal government, I mean, these are not exactly sophisticated thieves, but they were bleeding the federal government left, right, and center. What about other states? I mean, yeah. $9 billion in Minnesota. I mean, what about the other states? Is there any reason why anyone should feel comfortable that it's not happening elsewhere?
No, I think we need to examine all over the country, and this again was part of what DOJ was starting to do. But we need this, and as the White House has announced, as the Vice President talked about, putting a point person in the Department of Justice focused on just this. And here, I guess it also underscores something that we conservatives care about. When you got this much money being spent by the federal government, there's the potential that bad people are going to do bad things. And so it'd be nice if we kind of scale back what we spend. After all, we got a huge deficit and a huge debt. But also, for those who are ripping taxpayers off, it'd be nice if we got to the bottom of it and held them accountable.
Well, there's $9 billion that they keep tossing around with Minnesota. Is that all federal funds or some state funds? I mean, how bad should I feel as a federal taxpayer? I don't pay state Minnesota taxes.
I think it's primarily federal, but I'm sure there's some commingling. You know how funds go. There'd be federal dollars from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, probably mixed in with some state money, so it's probably both. But we'll have to see.
All right. Vice President Vance said there's going to be an associate attorney general who's going to be assigned to investigate that, because you don't do a special counsel, because that's got so many problems. Special counsel, the idea. But how fast? This position at the Justice Department must be confirmed by the Senate. How fast can the Senate move on this? Are we going to be left in confirmation land for the next 6 months?
No, I assume it'll move pretty quick. I mean, this is pretty bad. I mean, so bad that Tim Walz decided not to run for re-election, for goodness sake. So I think this is serious stuff. You'd think this could move pretty quick. Name that individual, get him in front of the Senate. I would anticipate Senator Grassley, Chairman Grassley, will move as quickly as he possibly can. And I appreciate the work of Attorney General Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Blanche, and their team there. I have confidence in those guys that they'll get this done right.
You know, the number's $9 billion just in Minnesota. It's just absolutely staggering. I mean, if I gave you $1 billion today, you couldn't spend it in a lifetime yourself. I mean, it's just staggering, the level of criminality. I cannot believe nobody else knew other than the collection of people that they've already arrested.
Well, Greta, understand what else took place. This is why it's so bad. There were whistleblowers who came forward over the last decade when this was all unfolding, and they were harassed by the administration. Instead of saying, "Oh, we got a problem here," they said, "No, we're going to push back on."
By Walz or by a federal administration?
No, by the state, the governor and the attorney general and the people in power in Minnesota. They were pushing back on these whistleblowers coming forward. We heard this from 3 members of the legislature, Minnesota legislature yesterday. They were pushing back on it, and as I said, so they pushed back on the whistleblowers. They enabled it to go on, and it looks like they were afraid of the racial discrimination charge that was going to be filed in court against them, which was, it looks to me like was just bogus. This is just fraud. So that's how this thing all unfolded. And the one witness yesterday, state representative there in Minnesota, said some of this goes back 15 years. That's how bad it was.
Chairman Jim Jordan, thank you, sir.
You bet, Greta. Thank you.
Coming up, the Trump administration says the United States will sell Venezuela's oil. How will that work? I'm going to ask Secretary of Energy Chris Wright when the record returns.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. With symptom relief as early as 4 weeks, remission at 12 weeks, and lasting remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible healing of the intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
JB Smoove, what are you doing here? I'm always here. I know what you're doing here, though. A consumer cellular commercial. You know, we should get you signed up. Aren't I too young? We got deals for people over 50. That sounds great. Sign me up. Make it happen, Teddy. Right now, get your 2nd month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Last night, in an attempt to de-escalate any tensions with Colombia, President Trump said he invited the Colombian president to the White House for a meeting. No date has been set. This followed these comments from the president on Sunday.
Now, we have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor, and that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
Colombia's president responded saying, quote, "Come get me. I'm waiting for you here," end quote. Senior correspondent John Huddy is in Cúcuta, Colombia. John?
Yeah, and Greta, the war of words between President Trump and President Petro seems to be kind of simmering down after the two spoke by phone. The president posting about that on Truth Social. I'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, I want to show you where we are, kind of set the scene for you. These are some of the soldiers that are guarding the Colombian checkpoint here as you enter the Simón Boulevard International Bridge crossing, then heading over to Venezuela. I'm going to show you that bridge crossing. But these soldiers are among the some 30,000 troops that have been deployed to this very rugged, very remote, mountainous border region between Colombia and Venezuela by President Petro because of the situation ongoing in Venezuela. And what we've been seeing all day, as you walk with me, John, are Venezuelans crossing through the checkpoint over the bridge back and forth. These are folks who are allowed to cross into Colombia. They're buying food, they're buying water, they're buying products that maybe was just too expensive in their home country, or maybe they can't find right now in their home country. We've talked to a few about the situation there, about the, what happened, many saying that they're concerned about the future, of Venezuela. But, keep in mind, these two countries have very strong economic and diplomatic relations, and that's something that we saw during a protest here. Several hundred marchers came to the bridge, speaking out, they said, against the U.S. involvement in Venezuela. On that note, though, President Trump posting on Truth Social, as I said, that he and President Petro spoke by phone. The president saying it was a great honor, that they talked about the drug situation here in this country, and then some of their disagreements, and that arrangements were being made for President Petro to come to the White House in D.C. to meet with President Trump. We don't have a time frame on that, so we're kind of in a holding pattern, waiting to see when that indeed will happen. But yesterday in Bogota, President Petro attended a rally, talked briefly about the conversation, and then added this. Listen.
In regard of this personal conversation, we shouldn't put our guard down. We still have to talk at the White House. 2 days ago, I also talked with the current president in Venezuela, Delcy, whom I have known since it all began. I invited her to Colombia. We want to establish a three-way dialogue, or hopefully global, to avoid a conflict within its own society, which could explode just like the Colombian society did.
Now, as far as I mentioned, the president talked about that the two had a conversation about the drug situation here. Greta, this is called the Norte Santander region of Colombia. It is very well known as really where the bulk of the coca processing is done in this mountainous region, and a lot of the narco trafficking between Colombia, the narco traffickers here, and then the cartel of the Suns under the Maduro regime across the border in Venezuela. It's an area that's been plagued by violence, although you wouldn't know it being in Cúcuta. Last night we went out walking around the city center. There was actually a carnival going on, very colorful, very vibrant, a lot of families out walking, but there is an uneasy calm certainly right now between both countries, what's happening on the ground here, certainly in Venezuela. And speaking of which, as I step out of the way, we can push in a little bit. Greta, I mentioned that this is the Simón Boulevard International Bridge crossing. Basically about halfway down the bridge, that is Venezuela. There are two border guards that have been posted there. We went right up to that border, but we did not go any further because if we would have stepped into Venezuela, obviously we would have been subject to arrest. We were even warned by somebody driving by, muy peligroso, very dangerous for you to continue. But this is basically the border crossing right up there into Venezuela. So while it is calm, while it is busy, there's certainly a tension lingering here on the ground. Greta?
John Huddy in Cúcuta, Colombia, thank you. So what are the next steps with Venezuela's oil? Who gets the money? What will be the impact on oil prices? Secretary of Energy Chris Wright joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir.
Great to see you, Greta.
Sir, tell me, do you know what the condition of the degraded infrastructure is of the oil drilling and refinement in Venezuela right now? Because that's what we've got to get up and running.
Well, of course, we have some knowledge of that. You know, Chevron, an American company, has been there for over 100 years, so I'm very close to them, so we know what things are in their areas. But you're right, most of the infrastructure has been very poorly invested in. It's not just the oil and gas infrastructure, the electricity infrastructure, heck, the road system. So there's a lot of problems, but, you know, that's opportunity. If we can get rule of law and a cooperative agreement with the United States, there's room for just enormous progress in Venezuela. which would be great for the people of Venezuela and great for the people of the United States.
So what happens with this oil? What happens with the proceeds from the oil?
So we're marketing the oil, and that proceeds goes into an account that's controlled by the United States, but all the money from the oil and gas sales will go into one account, and then those funds will be dispersed back into Venezuela for the benefit of America and the benefit of Venezuela. But they're going to get actually more oil revenue going forward than they got before. We can sell that oil at a much higher price than they can. We can get assured payment. We can remove a lot of the corruption out of the system. It's actually going to bring a lot more resources to the Venezuelan people. And I think cooperation between the two nations to drive that country in a better direction. Again, to the benefit of both countries.
Do you worry about this, though? I mean, they've got so much oil, so there's potentially so much money. Is that what sort of brought down Venezuela under Chavez was the fact that he was just giving money away? It was socialism. People weren't working. How do you take that money and actually, get the economy going with it, generate the economy moving so people are working rather than just waiting for a payment?
Oh, right on, Greta, right on. Look, this was a prosperous, wealthy, capitalist ally of the United States. Got taken over by the socialist communist dictatorship that controlled all the flow of money, and they took a wealthy nation and made it into an impoverished hellhole that a quarter of the population has fled the country. So you're right, having money, that's not enough. And that's the leverage we have right now. As we're the supplier of those funds from their oil sales, we're going to make sure that the rule of law, that economic institutions are in place that allow economic growth, that allow investment in the oil and gas sector. That'll benefit the United States tremendously by lowering energy prices and by removing criminal activity and human trafficking and all the horrific things that have happened in Venezuela. We're going to have the leverage to end those things. That's the agenda.
How do you convince the big oil companies here in the United States to be part of this? Because it's not been a stable government, and they got nationalized once. So if they invest now, they may lose their assets. 3 years from now.
Legitimate concerns, but no convincing necessary. I've been in dialogue since the day of Maduro being extradited to face charges. I've been in touch with all of the major oil and gas companies here in the United States and tons of smaller ones as well. The interest to go into that country is quite high. And yes, of course, people are going to go in cautiously at the start because it isn't wildly different than it was a month ago, but it is different. There's huge U.S. leverage there now. There's a partnership between the United States and the nation of Venezuela. So I think there's tremendous interest. We can stabilize the production where it is now and see it grow 30, 40, 50% in the next 12 to 18 months.
Let me ask you a quick question about the shadow fleet. I imagine that those are second, third, fourth-hand fleet that probably leak a lot and aren't particularly good. Am I right that this, have they an environmental concern? The shadow fleet that's been floating around in the world.
Well, they don't leak, but of course they're at greater risk of a minor crash or accident. They're single hull instead of double hull ships. So you're right. These are less safe tankers, and of course they're run by quasi-criminal gangs. So yes, we want to get rid of the shadow fleet, which is what our military blockade is doing. It's just stopping that illegal sale of oil, and now it's going to be on good modern tankers. Very transparent. Everyone's going to know where the oil is coming from and where it's going to and where the flow of funds is. Yeah, this, I think, is a major step forward, again, not just for Venezuela, for the Western Hemisphere and for the United States. President Trump's leadership is just transforming the game. In 25 years, Venezuela slid downhill, and all the traditional things, forces or in carrots and sticks, just haven't worked. President Trump is an innovator. He said, I'm not going to do what hasn't worked. I'm going to do something different. I love this idea. It's creative. It's cooperative. It's using our military, but no bullets are being fired. This could be a model for future progress in the world. And enforcing a blockade makes the United States credible and serious again. You've got a lot less criminals in the world when people know the police force is good.
Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.
Coming up, a congressman who's been serving in Congress more than 40 years is calling it quits. Find out who when the record continues.
You know, I think the biggest selling point for Newsmax is we're not doing the same boring, predictable news. You flip through the other channels, you got these high-paid hosts. They say the same thing every night. You know what they're going to say. It's a little different.
My husband is Michael J. Cardus. In March, he got a phone call that said, "You have lymphoma, it's treatable." He died the next morning. My biggest fears were, how do I financially support the kids? How do I emotionally support the kids? And then Tunnel to Towers paid off my mortgage. I felt like I was seen, that my service mattered to somebody.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, the 91-year-old formulator of Immuno 150, an incredible nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it. Now, Immuno 150 is different because it contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 other nutrients. Dr. Linus Pauling, known for vitamin C, was instrumental in convincing me to get into the mineral business in 1983. He said the world is sick due to a lack of minerals in topsoil. He said the body needs 60 minerals, but the average food and supplement has no more than 12. That's the reason for Immuno 150. Since its inception, it's had a powerful impact on the lives of thousands of people who could not get any help from various supplements they took or their doctor. Now, I suggest you try Immuno 150 to see what 70 minerals, CoQ10, and 80 nutrients can do for you. Look at the videos on our website. Millions have. And consider placing an order for Immuno 150 online or call our toll-free number. I know you'll be glad you did.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs and weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add Drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
What if you could invest in the growth of political campaign spending in America? Since Citizens United in 2010, election spending has surged, with the 2026 midterms expected to set new records. FullPack aims to be one of the first NASDAQ-listed stocks in this industry. NASDAQ has reserved FullPack the ticker, GOTV. Join top-tier investors and become a GOTV shareholder today. Learn more and buy FullPack shares before they begin trading at GOTV.com.
I never considered myself an alcoholic, but drinking affected my job, health, and relationships. A powerful medication helped me take back control. Now I no longer feel the urge to drink, and the same pill that helped me could help you. Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
Today, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul and newly sworn-in New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani held a joint press conference. During the presser, Hochul announced free child care for 2-year-olds living in New York. The presser comes one day after the ICE-involved shooting in Minnesota that killed 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. Yesterday, without waiting for all the evidence, like so many politicians and people on social media do, Mamdani took to X to say, quote, "This morning, an ICE agent murdered a woman in Minneapolis, only the latest horror in a year full of cruelty. As ICE attacks our neighbors across America, it is an attack on us all. New York stands with immigrants today and every day that follows," end quote. Former Special Assistant to President Biden and former Press Secretary to the First Lady, Michael LaRosa, joins me. Michael, I know it's fair to say is that today, if you told me what party someone is, I could probably tell you what the person thought happened in Minneapolis.
Yeah, it's
just as by party.
It's really sad. It was. It's been really kind of gross to listen and watch. The fact that everybody's rushing to judgment, nobody's really being measured in how they react to things. It's become like a Rorschach test based on what party you're from, in terms of how you see what occurred yesterday. And everybody's watching the same mostly two clips, right? But the mayor, he's mayor of New York City now. He needs to act like it. And, he needs to be taking care of the problems he's responsible for. That's why he was elected, not to chase viral moments or whatever he was trying to do there, because he's just politicizing it before all the facts are out.
No, he has higher aspirations, I think, though. Don't you think the mayor of New York? Otherwise, he wouldn't be. I mean, he is a big city. Minneapolis is a big city, but I think he has higher aspirations. And I think sometimes we media poke these people and say, what do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know if many people. But he took to Twitter, right? He didn't have to do that either.
That's true.
And he has enough to worry about. He has to deliver on all these big promises: the free groceries, the free buses. Let's go. This is not his jurisdiction. He should let it go and worry about the plans he needs to deliver on for New York City.
It's so horrible because there are no winners in what happened in Minnesota. I mean,
no.
You got a woman whose life is gone. You've got an ICE agent who probably is a good family. He had a similar situation once before, not without a shooting. Now he's got this. I mean, it's a trauma that affects so many people, and everyone. I guess I give everybody sort of a pass for saying really stupid things yesterday before.
Sure.
We still haven't seen all the tapes. We still haven't seen all the evidence, and it's this flash of a second, ICE agent making a decision.
That's right, and we don't know all the facts, and these kinds of investigations take a long time. We won't know everything for a while, but I also don't who am I to sit and judge law enforcement over the snap decision they make in a split second when their life is on the line, or when there's been a lot of, the ICE agents could have done this, or they could have done that.
Yeah, because we got time to think about it.
Exactly.
Yes, we have time.
Shoot the tires, or get the license plate. Well, who are we to say how they felt in that moment? We don't know.
Well, and even if they had more time, they might have, the agent here, if he'd had more time, might have had a different decision.
That's right.
You really called upon to make a decision very quickly. What I think is sort of interesting is that people show the tape in slow motion.
Yeah.
Which, when you do that, seems to give an opportunity to make a decision.
Yeah.
But the problem is these decisions are made in a snap.
That's right.
And so it's so deceptive to look at slow motion often.
That's right. And by every eyewitness account, even the anti-ICE protesters, the victim or the deceased put herself in the situation intentionally, had been trolling the ICE agents, and made a choice to put herself in between them and impede sort of their path. That's a choice, and sometimes I worry that people in my party are kind of saying that complying with the law is optional. I wasn't raised to believe or to think the law enforcement or the authorities complying with them was optional. If I was pulled over, I pulled over. I didn't hit the gas. And nobody can answer for me why it seems optional for this person to ignore, disobey, and then flee law enforcement.
Well, that's sort of what J.D. Vance, the vice president, said today, is that you settle your disagreements by who you vote, who you elect.
Yeah. Well, also if I feel in a moment that I'm being treated unfairly by the authorities, I know, due process, right? You can comply and then, defend your rights in court.
Yeah. Michael LaRosa, thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too.
And today, Democrat Maryland Congressman Steny Hoyer made this announcement on the House floor.
Shakespeare advised us all, this, above all else, to thine own self be true. And it must follow as night the day, thou canst not be false to any man or to any woman. In that vein, Mr. Speaker, I have decided not to seek another term in the People's House. I make this decision with sadness, for I love this House, an institution the framers designed to reflect the will of the American people and to serve as the guardian of their liberty and their democracy. In the year to come, I will have much more to say about the issues we have grappled with and the ways this House has changed during my time. At the outset, I said that I spoke with reluctant conviction. That reluctance is because I am deeply concerned that this House is not living up to the founders' goals. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to examine their conscience, renew their courage, and carry out the responsibilities that the first article of the Constitution demands.
Hoyer is 86 years old, and with him retiring, that could, but unlikely, impact the balance of power in the House. Right now, Republicans hold a slim majority of 218 to 213, but Hoyer's district is a solid Democrat district. 2024, he won by a whopping 68% to his Republican challenger. And Hoyer is not the only House member announcing retirement. Also today, Democratic Congresswoman Julia Brownley, who was first elected back in November 2012, announced that she will not be seeking re-election. So as of now, according to NPR, 46 House members have announced they do not plan to run for re-election for their current seat. And here's a little fun trivia for you. In 1963, Hoyer served as a Capitol Hill intern alongside now California Congresswoman and former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. The pair interned for late Maryland Senator Daniel Brewster. And Steny Hoyer, he's a real class act. Coming up, President Trump is now backing down on his push to acquire Greenland. But what does America's top ally think of the move? That when the record continues.
What did our presidents know about UFOs? Presidential interest in these objects dates back to George Washington and included JFK, Carter, Clinton, Reagan, and more. Find out the truth. Watch Presidents and UFOs, The Surprising Story.
This is a story about the one. The one who looks to Grainger to make sparks fly. Getting it done right is a craft. It takes experience, the right material, and the right partner like Grainger with a wide range of professional-grade products. For the one, working hard means others can play even harder. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
A new year brings new threats, and Cyberman's ready for every one of them. While hackers plot their next move, Cyberman's already there, protecting families, businesses, and governments before danger can strike. This year, protect what matters most with easy-to-use, award-winning protection. With PCmatic, you get American-made protection that's faster, smarter, and stronger. Start 2026 with confidence. Visit PCmatic.com today.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop, bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
Science didn't stop at diet and exercise. Why would you? Super Beats by Human delivers blood pressure support with clinically researched ingredients because cardiovascular health is everything health. Available at your local Costco.
President Trump has been saying it since his first term. He wants Greenland. Earlier today, White House National Security Council officials met with Greenland and Denmark officials at the White House. And the meeting comes as President Trump is renewing his push to acquire Greenland. Yesterday, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt was asked if the United States is considering buying the Arctic island. Here's the press secretary.
Well, that's something that's currently being actively discussed by the president and his national security team. And I would point out that the acquisition of Greenland by the United States is not a new idea. The president has been very open and clear with all of you and with the world that he views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like.
Just following up on Greenland, why not rule out taking it by military force?
All options are always on the table for President Trump as he examines what's in the best interest of the United States. But I will just say that the president's first option always has been diplomacy.
Meanwhile, America's top ally, the United Kingdom, appears to be against the move to acquire Greenland. On Monday, United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer said this.
The future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. Denmark is a close European ally, a close NATO ally, and the future, therefore, has to be for Greenland, for the Kingdom of Denmark, and only for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and we're absolutely clear about that.
The Danish Prime Minister's told Trump to stop the threats about Greenland. Do you agree with her?
Well, I stand with her,
okay.
And she's right about the future of Greenland.
Last hour, I spoke with Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, David Lammy. Here's that interview. Nice to see you again, sir.
Good to be here. Very good to be here.
What brings you to the United States?
So I am here because this year kicks off America 250. We're thinking about 250 years of America, and of course, we're thinking about the special relationship with the UK. So I went to Mount Vernon for the first time, which was extraordinary, laid a time capsule, and there's one under Trafalgar Square, under George Washington's statue, thinking about in 250 years' time, when young people and historians open this capsule, they get to think about what life was like way back when we were thinking about the special relationship. So that's the first thing.
Well, what a good sport you are, because it was independence from you. I mean, you're a good sport to come and celebrate with us.
We went from revolution to reconciliation and the closest of allies, and that in of itself is a remarkable story. And then the other thing I've been doing is all three bits of the state. I have my meeting with Vice President Vance this morning. I'll be seeing him a bit later today. I was at the Supreme Court with Justice Kagan, and of course I was on the Hill with lots of senators and congressmen, getting a sense of the mood here in the United States.
But the mood is quite choppy, I would say, right now. I mean, we have a lot of things on our plate. We've got Venezuela, we've got Greenland, we've got Minnesota. In terms of Greenland, that sort of draws your country into the discussion, because President Trump has, at least he has said that he would like the United States to have the Greenland part of the United States, and your country opposes that. Why?
Well, actually, I was up in the high north in the Arctic just a few months back. There are some serious threats, and all of us need to do more. And our Prime Minister spoke to President Trump and agreed that we all need to do more. And can do more. There's a meeting of NATO ambassadors today discussing what more we can do in the High North. So I think that the United States, understandably, has genuine concerns about the Arctic. You know, the truth is Russia, China to some extent, up to quite a lot up there. And let us discuss how we take that forward and do that in a way as allies, you know, of course with Denmark, other nations who are part of that group of countries who take a big interest in the High North.
Yeah, but it's interesting, though. I looked up the population of Greenland today, 56,000 people. And, you know, they're sort of caught between in this discussion. And I think, you know, Denmark doesn't want Greenland to sort of to leave their kingdom. The president's talking about trying to, you know, I don't know what he wants, not invade, that's a rough word, but he wants Greenland. It's, you know, those 56,000 people, you know, who's talking to them?
Yeah, and that's why we have said that in the end this must be, understandably, a matter for the people of Greenland, but also a matter for the Kingdom of Denmark. But there are serious concerns in the High North and the Arctic. The United States has always taken a big interest. There are troops on Greenland. Does the United States want more troops on Greenland? And obviously the UK will continue to play our part, brokering those discussions with allies across the NATO family.
We had a little bit of a cat and mouse game since December here in the United States, chasing a tanker that's changed its name. It made its way up to, I think it got stopped somewhere near Greenland, but I think it was almost into UK territory. Did the UK participate in that at all, do you know?
Yes, we were very happy to support our colleagues in the US. We have taken an active role in challenging Russia's shadow fleet, you know, a lot of this also is deeply connected to Iran, that we remain hugely concerned, illicit money, illicit oil. We've imposed tremendous amounts of sanctions, and we were happy to support our friends in the United States as they bore down on that Bella tanker just in the last 2 days.
You know, when I was in London in September, what I loved about it is that because the president was coming for a state visit, it was lined with U.S. flags as sort of a nod to the United States. It really is a wonderful friendship, is it not, between the two countries?
Oh, look, our friendship is based on, obviously, a shared language, lots of shared culture, a mutual respect in so many different ways. We say words the same, but differently.
Yeah, you say schedule. You say schedule. We say schedule.
You say tomato. We say
I know. You say bonnet. We say hood, the hood of the car. And vitamin. That's another one.
Vitamin.
Yes, of course.
So, but look, it's and of course the serious side to this is, I think more than 2 million jobs in each other's countries, $1 trillion of investment in each other's countries, lots of jobs. We are leaders in tech, innovation. There is a lot to celebrate when it comes to the UK and the US, and we keep a lot of people safe because of a shared attitude to the free world.
Indeed. Thank you, sir, for joining me. And nice to have you back. When you come back,
always,
come see
Greta,
me.
Always.
Always nice
always.
to see you. Thank
Good
you,
to
sir.
See you.
Secretary Marco Rubio apparently does everything. In January, he became Secretary of State. On May 1st, President Trump, who had given National Security Advisor Michael Waltz the boot, gave Rubio his second job as that acting National Security Advisor. But that's not all. Rubio is also the acting archivist of the United States. And for a time, Rubio is also the head of USAID when the department was merged into the State Department. In the wake of Nicolas Maduro's capture, Rubio has been tasked with overseeing Venezuela's transition. With all those jobs, the internet has had some fun with Rubio, now creating memes showing Rubio in more jobs such as the leader of Venezuela, governor of Minnesota, governor of Greenland, leader of Iran, and quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. To be clear, it's obvious these are AI generated and not real. And today, though, big football news. Rubio's beloved Miami Dolphins fired their head coach. So Rubio, who was born in Miami, had some fun on X himself. Rubio posted, quote, "I do not normally respond to online rumors, but feel the need to do so at this moment. I will not be a candidate for the currently vacant head coach and general manager positions with the Miami Dolphins. Well, you never know what the future may bring. Right now, my focus must remain on global events and also the precious archives of the United States of America," end quote. Coming up, our outrage of the day. What a nightclub owner is accused of after the party erupted in flames. That when the record continues.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. With rapid remission at 12 weeks and fewer bowel movements and less abdominal pain at 4 weeks. Most patients achieve remission at 1 year, and some patients saw visible healing of the intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Backed by over 15 years of clinical research. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
When Betty and George switched to consumer cellular, it saved them a lot. So they started splurging on date night. No. Don't you dare. It's an acquired taste. Right now, get your second month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
From drained investment accounts and stolen tax returns to lost wages and hiring lawyers, identity theft can cost you more than you might think. That's why only LifeLock offers the $1 Million Protection Package, which covers stolen funds, experts and lawyers, and out-of-pocket expenses up to $3 million in total. Don't face the high cost of identity theft alone. Protect your future and finances with LifeLock. Join today.
Hi, Mom. I can't wait for you to hear well again, so I won't have to scream to tell you that I love you.
Now tell me if you can hear this. Hi, Mom.
It's not just your hearing. For us, it's your life. That's why we created the Miracle Ear Way. Our superior expertise is backed by licensed professionals that take the time to get to know you and your needs. Book your free test. Call 1-800-498-7146. Your care is on us. From your first hearing test to free unlimited servicing, cleanings, and checkups. We utilize solutions that transform hearing. It's our way of offering nearly invisible designs to AI technology. Try risk-free. Call 1-800-498-7146. Stay connected to your loved ones. Book now. Call 1-800-498-7146.
Lara Logan here with some news for you. Men's testosterone levels today are roughly half of what they were 50 years ago. And after the age of 30, testosterone drops around 1% every year. Chalk's male vitality supplements may be the answer for you. They contain ingredients clinically proven to boost natural testosterone production. Go to chalk.com and use code TV to get a huge discount. Or call or text the number on your screen today.
It is time for our outrage of the day. Remember the fire last week at a Swiss nightclub in which 40 people burned to death? Well, one of the club's owners, allegedly, fled with cash while terrified patrons were trying to escape the flames. According to an Italian news outlet, the owner, Jessica Moretta, was seen by multiple witnesses carrying the cash register from the bar. Jessica and her husband have owned the club since 2015. A lawyer representing several fire victims also accused the couple of destroying evidence and blocking the bar's social media accounts. The lawyer told the London Times that the account showed videos of the packed New Year's Eve party. The post allegedly showed security concerns. The fire was caused after sparklers attached to champagne bottles ignited the ceiling. In addition to the 40 killed, more than 100 were injured in the fire, but the owners allegedly made off with the cash. And if you're among the 1 million people in the United States living with Parkinson's disease, you're going to want to tune in tomorrow. You will hear from a Texas TV station meteorologist named Trey Mining. He underwent life-changing brain surgery to treat his Parkinson's. The surgery allows Mining to control his symptoms with the touch of a button. Mining demonstrates it on air. And tomorrow, my interview with Mining about the groundbreaking procedure called deep brain simulation, how this treatment could offer hope to those living with Parkinson's disease. You'll want to see this interview. Again, it's tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. Coming up, nothing like going home. You're going to see when the record continues.
It's true. I am an America First, liberty-loving Latino. That's why I know this country is worth fighting for. That's why the Chris Salcedo Show will always tell you the truth.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.
What if getting older didn't mean living with joint discomfort, brain fog, or low energy? Qualia Senolytic is the only all-in-one clinically tested formula with 9 ingredients designed to help your body clear aging cells. Taken just 2 days a month, this regimen works at the cellular level to rejuvenate energy and support longevity, helping you stay active and energized. With Qualia Senolytic, life truly gets better with age. Start today at qualialife.com/TV.
Drop is finally here. Drop delivers the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 injections in easy-to-use oral drops, no needles.
That's right. The two big drawbacks with weight loss injections are high costs and weekly injections. Drop is flavorless and odorless, so you can just add it to water or your favorite beverage. Drop offers other advantages over injections too. With Drop, you can personalize your dosage based on your weight loss goals.
And because you add drop to any liquid, there's no concern about injection site infections, bruising, or dosage confusion.
Drop is the easier, safer, cost-effective alternative to help you achieve your weight loss goals without the needles.
Can't find it anywhere? The Wellness Company has it. No consultation needed. Simply order online and use promo code SLIM to save $100. Visit dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Inflation and economic uncertainty have affected all of us. But if you have a structured settlement or annuity, J.G. Wentworth can help you get a lump sum of cash now in exchange for some or all of your future payments. J.G. Wentworth has helped individuals get over $290 million in the past year alone. So why live month to month in these uncertain economic times? Call J.G. Wentworth today at 877-CASH-NOW and get the cash you need now from your structured settlement. Call now.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
I'm sure you wanted to know this. Being a manatee is just not that easy. So the zoo in Tampa has been working to save manatees and rehabilitating them back into Florida waters. In 2025, the zoo released 26 manatees back to their homes in the Florida waters. It is the highest number of manatee releases in a 12-month period in the zoo's history. Zoo Tampa also says it is going to expand its facility for manatees. The facility will include critical care pools, areas where human visitors can watch these animals get nursed back to health and then released back to their natural habitat, their home. The Chris Salcedo Show is up next. Have a great evening.